It's a beautiful day in Retopolis, where most riders are trying to get some ideas out in nature. No one keeps a patrol like our illustrious Captain Writ, or else it could have been the impossible day where no one was feeling any danger at all. The birds were chirping, the butterflies out flittering among plants and rarely disturbed by humans. The grass smelled lovely, especially in places where it was fresh cut, and the sun shone with pleasantly shaped clouds occupying the sky.
Despite living in Retopolis for merely months, I feel like this is the most astounding weather we've ever had in the entire history of the city.
I think it's a bit too ostentatious to say entire history, my dear.
This comment caught the writer by surprise, and she looked up to the man who spoke to her. Listeners can tell he must be important because he's being described in an audio-only format. He was fairly tall, but since he was unseasonably clothed, she couldn't see much more in descriptive detail. All she could see was the drab robe he chose to wear despite the heat, and his face peeked out from under a hood. The sallow skin was enough to make her feel uncomfortable, but his inhumanly narrow pupils cinched the instinct.
There's more history in this place than you or I combined could count for. But I prefer a colder, wetter climate.
That's obvious. You're the one choosing to wear robes on a day like this one.
Something about the sky being sour makes my energy tower. The perfect storm of uncertainty, lack of will to progress due to poor conditions, maybe even feeling under the weather. I love those days.
Why would you enjoy that? There's no way to get much accomplished, sir.
Indeed it isn't, my dear. And I suppose that's the point.
As she turned away from him, thinking the conversation was over, the man closed the distance. With a strange sound, like bones cracking or a whoosh of air, this man put some special stick at her back and tried taking something from within. Before she realized it, she had no desire to do much of anything.
It's too hot for me to sit out here. What am I doing? I need to go inside and stare at my screen for hours without putting more words down.
And another one down. The more of this I do, the better I feel. Like I won't stick out. I can't be the only creator in Retopolis to suffer dry spells. I will make others stoop to my level.
The poor writer slouched back to her home, none the wiser that she had been attacked by the man who police would take to calling the gumption thief.
It's a sad sort of affair, it is. To imagine someone feels so out of sorts about their creative output that they would fall to the level of taking others' initiative from them. It just doesn't sit right with me, you know what I'm saying?
The gathered officers agreed as they tried formulating a strategy against the gumption thief. Their chief of police was up in arms about the development.
Now I want to put this in the right couching language. I want no stone unturned as we try to apprehend this menace. No one deserves to have that inner desire to proceed taken away from them. Nobody! On the double, I want patrols doubled, no, even quadrupled until we find this man. Anybody have an ear to the ground about a witness?
No, Chief, we don't yet.
Ah, yes, Officer Betts, we hear from you again. What is this, 7 attempts in a row at establishing you as the most competent police officer in Retopolis?
Not that anyone was keeping track, except for maybe the writer of these serials, David.
See, Chief, the thing is the news has been a bit too sudden for us to have any leads. Nobody has come forward claiming an attack by the man yet. We aren't even sure it's a man, but let's be real and assume it's a man because men are awful.
Aren't we all, Officer Betts? Well, what are you buffoons standing here for? On you get to finding the gumption thief.
The police cast a broad net in search of this new no-gooder, but failed to catch any valuable information. Unsurprisingly, it was the captain's routine patrols that happened to the right spot at the right time which brought the first lead on this baddie.
Wait! You there in the long robe! Stop what you're doing at once! I don't know what kind of games you play behind closed doors, but taking your stick out and waving it around at people is not acceptable in public arenas.
I was wondering when you would show up, you oafish hero. Already my plan progresses smoothly, and nobody will be able to stop me, I swear!
Your plan? I'm sure with the help of the capable officers keeping the laws in this city, I'll be more than able to stop your heinous deeds.
Don't mind me sticking around for too long to debate the matter with you, Captain Twit. I'm out of here.
The thief showed surprising speed as he ran away from the park where Captain Writ had accosted him. The captain was disappointed he hadn't done much more than verbally apprehend the criminal. The thief was sad he couldn't take away someone else's impetus.
It seems I should conference with the trusty chief of police here and put our heads together. I doubt he'll like that.
Our esteemed captain's thoughts about the subject were entirely accurate, for the chief of police did not, in fact, like the prospect of needing the captain's help once again.
Captain, you don't seem to be needed in this arena. He's not a powered person. Why not leave it to my officers?
Chief, I know that your men are typically capable of stopping more small-time threats like this, compared to some of those goons I've needed to bring in for maximum security, but this gentleman's ability is nothing to be laughed at.
Oh, for heaven's sake, have you seen what he can actually do?
No, I suppose I haven't yet witnessed the ability.
Then what good is talking here supposed to do about it? You were the first to catch him in the act, and now thanks to you we have a working description of his appearance, and that should be more than enough help from you on this.
We can hypothesize what his main weapon must be. I saw a stick he was waving about, trying to encroach on people peacefully seeing the outdoors and working on their story concepts.
A stick? Like a twig snapped from some tree or sapling or taken in hand to prod people. How is that a problem where you need to step in?
Okay, on its face, I'd agree with you, Chief, but his threat sounded far more sinister than that.
Captain Writ, here you are in my office once again assuming a threat level that isn't necessarily there just to insinuate yourself into the situation and take more work away from my officers. I won't stand for it, so before I get really angry, get out of here and find something else to do with all your powers. Maybe actually get some writing done for a change.
This comment cut deep into the captain's heart, for he had sacrificed most of his writing time for other pursuits, many of them nobler, like patrolling the skies regularly and generally being the first on the scene to understand new threats to his city, akin to the current situation. He was unhappy with the chief's diatribe, but elected to swallow his pride and walked out of the precinct.
For the moment, it's tempting to deal with my emotional problems and go respond to the chief's jab at my creative output. But I'm a superhero. Who needs that wishy-washy emotional stuff? The best thing for me to do now is keep vigilant watch to the skies!
Meanwhile, the gumption thief himself wasted little time continuing his random blitzkrieg on unsuspecting riders. 1 second they felt something at their back. The next moment they knew no motivation to do anything. Rather, the sheer possibility of all things they could be doing instead overwhelmed their creative spirits. Would anyone be able to ascend from this madness?
The best part about all this is that in finding my own spine to take away the writer's creative impulses, I've solved my problem. Ha!
Sounds to me like you nestled a bunch of problems inside you and regretted that decision.
Let me tell you all about it. Just give me a second to...
The thief didn't realize until he whirled about, hoping to claim another victim's go-go spirit, that the captain had landed right next to him while he justified his crimes.
Wait a second. It's the captain, the one ungainly flying around Ritopolis and spouting nonsense about fixing all the errors in this world.
Actually, it's right all the wrongs in this world, but I have to give you partial credit for your astute grasp of the situation.
But Captain, my Captain, if you didn't have any desire to move forward, all these poor riders would be in trouble, wouldn't they? Allow me to explain just why you're wasting your time on all these fools.
Could this heinous person actually convince our hero, the dear Captain Writ, that he was not in the right line of work?
Just think, all the time you gallivant around the skies patrolling, you could be creating. Not that I'll complain. You're like the only entity in Ritopolis who's put out less than me, I'd wager.
Since when did this become Pick on Captain Writ Day? I swear I don't have an inferiority complex about actually writing. I don't!
Since when did this become Pick on Captain Writ Day? Allow me to take you back to a time when...
That's enough out of you, Mr. Omniscient Narrator. So much for that!
And with a swerving motion, the heathen actually forces me into the frame. What is he doing with that little stick? How dare he put it near the all-present me? Whatever will happen to our beloved...
We apologize to those of you at home wondering what else happened in Captain Writ and the Impetus Inquisition. Truth be told, we at the recording studio are completely baffled by it. Normally, I'd ask leading questions to pique your interest in listening to the whole thing, and this is where I would talk about finding the nearest old-timey radio, or subscribing to a Patreon account. But we legitimately don't have any more audio. That last action must have broken the narrator or something. Anyways, this aborted excerpt was brought to you, as usual, by the Two Twits of the Ritwit, the only show that can't live up to any part of its name without some severe mental limbo. We now return you to that show.
Welcome, fellow nerds, to another episode of the Writ, a show about anything under the sun, so long as we can faintly tie it back to the written word. Just watch us!
So I learned the most interesting thing about muons today. You know what a muon is?
Muon sounds like some kind of currency or food. I'm not sure
It's
which.
something about physics.
Physics. Oh, like MUON?
Yes.
Like a unit of sound or something of that
Yes.
nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. I just heard the term muon. And I'm like,
But if I were really like sophisticated, I would throw muons into the next project I do because it's about sound, and that's totally like dovetailing my interest in
Ooh.
writing and my interest in music together.
see,
right?
we did it. We tied it back to the written word.
Faintly.
What about mole? You know what a mole is? Not a mole like the
Mole,
like not like the animal. Of
Yeah,
course.
no. Something about the unit of movement for a planetary body.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna look it up because I'm sure even if I did look it up, I'd be like, what?
I just say you're so unprofessional.
Well, it's
But if you're in space, you probably should know what mole is, even if you don't
see, I
use
don't
it.
even know if it's about space though.
But I'm saying if you write about space,
But if it's not about space, okay, hold on.
if you write about space, and a mole is actually a space unit of like distance or
All right,
movement of a
all
planetary
right.
body, like
a mole is the base unit of amount of substance in the International System of Units. It's defined as exactly 6.022 140 76 times 10 to the 23 particles.
So it wasn't about a thing of movement; it was about
See, that's
size.
what I thought.
I couldn't remember. I seem to. I think I did read about that like once in some other context.
Okay. The mole is widely used in chemistry as a convenient way to express amounts of reactants and products of chemical reactions.
You know what subject I took in high school?
Yes.
Chemistry. You know
Yeah.
what other subjects I took in high school?
Writing!
English!
All right. Straight into it. Here we go.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that's like 6 degrees of separation kind of connections, but still.
I'd wager most of us took English in high school.
I'm pretty sure everybody.
Even
they
me,
went
and I
to-
was homeschooled in
even-
high school.
Even people who don't use English as a first language in American schools will take English in high school.
Yes, that's true.
So there's that. But anyway,
Anyways, it's very American-centric, yeah. So.
we managed to tie it back to
All
the
right.
right word. We
Anyways,
tried.
finally, we're at, since the last percent, we're going to just go straight into it, even though we talked about moles and muons.
We don't have any foreplay for this because it's the 4th of our set.
Oh, God. It's like your dad is back from the grave.
How dare you?
Yeah, I know. That was low. That was just the kind of jokes he loved, man.
I came by it honestly. Do not exhume my dead father.
Sorry. Hey, if you can make jokes about Penny, the dead cockatiel, who was a service animal for me,
I'm
all you-
better than that, I'd like to think. But anyway.
Come on, throw me one. Throw me one.
Throw you one. Well, if only you had 2 pennies to rub together. Oh, wait. One's
Oh,
gone.
I never even had 2 pennies. I only had 1 penny.
Yeah, but you that with an actual coin and you didn't have 2
I
pennies
guess
to rub
it's-
together.
Well, I'm sure I could do that with 2 pennies.
See, you were so broke. Anyway, moving on.
You got your hook, you got your main character, and you got your plot ready to go. Surely you can start writing now, right?
I mean, most people might already figure that out.
Yeah, but not
But-
necessarily. For the final bit of planning before you get into writing your draft, you have
Not
to come
about
up-
setting, apparently, because we can't fit it into 4 episodes. Sorry for those
Well,
of
it's
you who are
kind
so
of like
desperate.
with genre or whatever. But for the final bit of you have to come up with your inciting incident, i.e., what makes the story really start.
Yeah.
This isn't always necessarily the start of your book, but it's a good thing to think about just before you write. Like, what are some ways you can work with the elements you've already planned to come up with your inciting incident?
Given you followed this order in the preparatory stuff before you crack the knuckles and get to work on a draft, you should already have a lot of factors figured out.
Yes.
The main apex of the plot, the main character you want the readers to follow or care for, the main frame the story is trying to fill.
I like that emphasis on the main apex of the story. The main character you want
That
to follow.
was
The
that
main
was
frame
kind
of the story.
serendipitous, but nevertheless. But do those directly impact your inciting incident or not? By inciting incident, this is the essential conflict where the whole thing becomes necessary. So if your villain aims for world domination, it's the moment where they become infatuated with the idea of power, or the moment they finish taking over the last one and set sights on planet R instead.
Ooh, planet R. What happened to planets A through S?
I
Q.
I couldn't tell you.
S
They were
is
probably all
afterwards.
dominated. It had nothing to do. It was probably in a different system than Valkyrian 7, we'll say that. These actual incidents can occur far in the past, which means necessary prologue or flashback setup,
Yes.
or much closer to the present, depending on how you showcase the antag versus protag convergence of life threads.
Antag and protag seems like a slur. It sounds like a slur. You're such an antag.
More like, anyway. If you've envisioned a grand scene that sets the snowball down the hill, you already have this incident figured out, and great. Did that come to you while thinking about the antagonist? Maybe the plot. Perchance it was when you thought of the protagonist's backstory.
Yes.
Wherever that happened, I honestly get to this part early on in my planning, and certainly writing, because it's generally the motivation for the character.
That's true.
Using what you've already decided may illuminate the path, even if the inciting incident remains nebulous at this phase of your prep work.
Right, exactly.
In which case, take a torch and explore the way.
Indiana Jones style.
But I
through
mean,
the tomb of your plots.
But, like, frankly, sometimes I'll think of the inciting incident when I don't mean to, like, sit down and, okay, I need to figure this out. I'll do it when I'm doing something else.
Just like, well, what if this happened? To the main character, and they're like, oh my god!
Oh, my goodness.
And then they're like, well, I'm sorry, if I took the Lord's name in vain, my apologies.
God dang it.
Gosh damn it.
Oh, man, I had a a friend of mine did that one, and I'm like, really? You're going to go so far as to say gosh instead, but you still curse with damn.
Yeah,
Why?
well, that's where I came up with the joke for that skit that we did a little
Yes,
while. I think it was last episode. No, two episodes. First of our set, I think.
So 3 episodes ago. But anyway.
Okay. Anyways, you have your characters. Great. You have what happens to them throughout the story. Great. Now you got to figure out what happens to the story, when the story starts happening. What draws them into it?
Yeah.
What makes them want to go forward? That's the classic part of the hero's journey, where the hero reaches the point where they go forward on the quest and continue the journey rather than staying at home and stopping the journey dead. And usually this point is against their wishes. They have to do it.
Yeah.
They really want to just stay home, but they can't. So why can't they? Figure that out and figure out what those pieces of pre-planning you've already figured out.
This could be completely independent of what you've already planned ahead of time, especially if you get to this first. But, like, this doesn't have to have connection with the other things, especially if it's something far off that you aren't feeling the ripple effects right away, so it doesn't impact the story until the character reaches a certain juncture in the story.
Right, exactly. But, like, how can writers avoid the cliche of hero's journey step 1 as a choice for the inciting incident? Can we break out of the chains that require us to have a conflict in the small, comely town before breaking out into the world to take on the journey with a capital J?
The capitals make everything more emphasized.
Mm-hmm.
It's at this point I feel the need to differentiate between inciting incident for the plot and for the protagonist.
Yes.
The protag's motivation for going on the hero's journey becomes readily apparent, but presumably the conflict they'll run headlong into already started back in the past of some certain vintage.
Right, exactly.
So I don't mind using this hero's journey step 1 for a character that wants to get out and see the world, practically virginal to the ways of your universe.
Nice.
Because they are.
Right, exactly.
Which is hero's journey step 1. Theoretically, all your characters have this start somewhere, but focus in on the moment where they make the fateful decision.
Yes. And whether that decision is really up to them or not, but they do still make it.
That hour that changes their life and several degree of numbers more besides. Hundreds, thousands, billions.
They're an influencer on Instagram, so millions of people are affected by their decision.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's going to be a shockingly small amount of time for something that will change the rest of their life.
That's true.
But as for breaking past those tired old things, nobody said you couldn't address part 1 of the journey in flashbacks and start somewhere else.
Oh, yes. the distant prologue.
Not even a distant prologue. Just don't do it. And you start at chapter 1. They're already out of the town, but they're still new to the world. And then they talk about why they left home
and
their motivations before when they're talking to this new person they met.
Okay. Yeah, sure, maybe. Well, look, it's a cliche because it works.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to avoid the hero's journey part.
Chain, man, break the chain. No,
well, yeah, I don't know the words of that song. Da 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 da. The Chain by the Fleetwood Mac.
God, I don't really know much of Fleetwood Mac's music, so there's
da,
that.
Da da da.
You know more about it than I do.
Da 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 da.
But enough about the Chain.
I'm not good with lyrics. I just know tunes.
This is why he listens to movie scores.
Yes! They play it in Guardians of the Galaxy twice. The second one, they play it twice. Anyways. So
in fact, it's pretty hard not to use this cliche. So,
As I just said, you don't have to start right at step 1.
right. However,
So that's a way to avoid it.
That's one
right
way.
there
are
but
plenty of ways you can, if you're creative enough. Like maybe the hero signs up for the fight himself.
enlisting in the army or military.
Maybe the hero finds something interesting that leads him toward the plot rather than the conflict.
So he's just exploring a cave and chances across this thing that he takes home to the Shire and then gets caught up in.
Okay, well, that's part 1, and then of the pre-novel, and then the second trilogy is of his nephew, like, getting that ring and then going to Mordor alone. Were we talking about Lord of the Rings?
Not alone, but yes, I was. I was talking about.
No,
that.
I know. I was
the Shire.
No, I know. I was just being silly. So there's this great scene in the extended edition when the Fellowship is first leaving, and like
First leaving Rivendell.
Rivendell, yes,
Okay.
and
I guess it wouldn't be the whole Fellowship before Rivendell.
yeah. So I don't know if this is in the book, but it's only in the extended version of the movie. And Frodo, they're stepping out of Rivendell, and he's like, "Oh no, which way is Mordor?" And then Gandalf's just like, "Left." And then they walk.
That's not in the book.
And then so they go just to show just how woefully underprepared he is.
Well, and he did say left rather than directional, because if I remember looking at the map that's included in the books,
yeah,
Mordor is actually to the southeast of Rivendell.
Well,
so depending on where
with
they
the gate,
leave Rivendell,
yeah.
that makes the difference. Interesting. No, that's not in the book.
But I just thought it was kind of funny just to show how woefully underprepared he is. Like, and so.
Yep, there's definitely something to that.
But anyways, think about all the different stories that use the hero's journey template and see the different ways they handle this point. There are other methods or unique ways to do the same method. I mean, no writing's original. We're all ripping off someone, so.
It's how you combine ideas together. That's the creativity left over.
If your inciting incident is not at the start of your book, how far into the draft should it appear?
Since I all too frequently write stories in the superhero/powered armor lane,
Yes.
I'll use some terms from there that should make it clear. When the big bad is finally intoning their dastardly full plan, along with all the bad stuff that happened to them and make them this way,
I like how you wrote stuff.
they're bemoaning their fate that set them down a dark road. That's the moment this drops in full light for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
It could be done as simple monologuing, maybe a flashback scene that cuts right to the moment it's relevant in the present, something that's not as easy as it sounds. Chopped into parts or presented in full, this could be accomplished by the proxy character hearing about the incident. Where that occurs in your plot, likely closer to the climax, I suppose, shouldn't have a prescribed paragraph/page count.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
It needs to be revealed when the time is ripe for that to impact the characters finally coming to grips with the massive machinations of the insane antagonist.
Ooh, all their insane and massive machinations.
Not that everybody is Machiavellian or that it's always the antagonist that's insane.
I like your word choice of Machiavellian.
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 Niccolo Machiavelli wrote, what was the name of that?
Faust.
No, Faust was Goethe.
Who?
Goethe. He was a German.
I knew it sounds German, but
Oh God, why is Machiavelli? Niccolo
okay,
Machiavelli.
you're looking something up.
I
now.
know, so professional.
No, that's okay. Hey, I've done it plenty of times. It's bound to happen that you do it.
He was from the Renaissance, but he was known as being incredibly ruthless. He wrote a book called The Prince, which is a handbook for unscrupulous politicians that inspired the term Machiavellian.
Oh, I think I've heard of that book. Yeah, I've heard
Yeah.
of that makes sense. But so if your inciting incident is not the start, in my opinion, it better be pretty close to the start. Otherwise, it just feels like meandering.
I suppose it depends on how much you feel like pulling back the curtain on the motivation. Like, I apologize for treating it this way, but generally I think of the inciting incident because, again, the stories I write, the antagonist is responsible for it.
Yeah.
So
Well,
if
just
it's them and
something-
you want to keep that shrouded in mystery, you need to reveal their intentions. You need to reveal their motivations bit by bit without doing the full thing at once.
Well, it's more like it's just what makes the plot start.
Yeah, it's the conflict.
So, like I don't know why this is the first example that comes to mind of work without an antagonist has an inciting incident. Finding Dory.
Haven't seen it. Okay.
It first starts off with a flashback of Dory when she's with her parents and then how she gets separated from them. And then it goes to the modern day and then where she's with Marlin and Nemo. And then she's helping with Nemo's school. And then suddenly she gets some things that trigger her memory of what happened. And then she's like, I gotta go back and I know where I'm supposed to go.
Yeah.
And that's the inciting incident. It's like something that triggers her short-term memory to be like, wait a minute.
This isn't right. I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah. So.
Well, and, I understand your point of meandering. I would propose that you do not want to keep your main character's motivations clouded.
Right.
That I could understand in meandering. But if you want to have this villain who's shrouded in mystery, the time being right to have the full scope of his plans revealed, which probably
you don't need
mention of
you
the
don't need to
conflict.
have his full scope revealed to have the inciting incident.
But it's probably from there that he attributes everything to.
Maybe.
Which is why, again, the whole bemoaning their fate and all the stuff that made them this way.
But, like, seeing how the world works and meeting the characters is nice and all, but if something doesn't happen to them personally, I'd just be snapping my fingers and shouting, come on, get to the action already. I want to see this quaint home village of the protagonist blow up!
Now, I think the difference that we're approaching this from two different angles. I said that there's a difference between, the inciting incident for the plot
Yes.
versus for the protagonist. You're talking about the one for the protagonist.
Yeah, well, and that's usually the one that gets the plot going, though.
But I'm talking about the one that's overarching for the fact that there's a story happening at all.
Well, in that case, then yes, you're right. But I'm talking about, like, for the protagonist, because we're often seeing it from his perspective, so.
If it's a he.
Or their
Apologies
perspective. Their perspective. Anyways. So is it possible that multiple events can incite your cast into action?
Short answer, yes. We just argued about it.
Yeah, how would you wrangle both / all of those in your universe building?
If you have multiple characters that you're focusing on, this is highly likely because all of them have their own origins.
Right.
All of them have their own reasons for stepping out, trying to do something. The motivation for the secondary character to follow the first may not be identical to the first motivation, but in effect, traveling together shows more about how this incident, or these for the plural, impact the universe at large.
Right, that makes sense.
Again, the one for the plot, not necessarily for this individual protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
It offers windows into things the proxy character learns for the audience's benefit.
Yes.
Can endear you to a different character rather than the one the book intends you to follow. Or even blaze a new path which could lead to a juicy subplot which alters the eventual resolution of your tale.
Makes sense.
I think wrangling them is as simple as making sure the stars align, that all these people in righteous indignation are mad at the same faction of characters, which builds additional stakes to resolve
Right.
the matter at hand.
That's true.
Far as non-combat stories are concerned, because most of those things are suddenly inapplicable, I suppose it applies, but is also less likely to get unwieldy due to smaller scale.
Well, like, there are those movies that no one seems to really like, but they kept making for a while. You remember the Valentine's Day? You remember that romantic comedy that had, like...
All these A-list actors, and
Like
they were
20
in
of them.
for, like, only 3 scenes or in, like, 3 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, and then they also did New Year's and Mother's Day.
I
think.
remember hearing about the series, but I never watched any
Yeah,
of
well,
them.
I've heard they're terrible, and it's just a weird idea. But the point of that, I bring this up, is that
It's
is
like an anthology almost.
That is a bunch of characters who aren't related, but the thing that brings them all together is one thing.
Fair.
Valentine's Day for the first movie.
Thematic, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, like, I don't know, maybe they're all connected. I don't think they are, but,
Well, I mean, our lives, we live in connection with certain people, but not all people.
yeah, I don't know. But the point is, though, like, yeah, this works well as ensemble pieces, different events to get different characters into action. However, in order to keep them getting too complicated, like I'm saying here, it's best for all these events, however different they might be, to spark from a single larger event.
Yeah.
Like all those disaster movies that have huge cast of characters who are affected by the disaster in different ways.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and, whether you see a bunch of characters who are coming in for this legendary 4-army battle, to be different from 5, this 4-army battle, well, all these people are coming in that you've never seen on screen before, but they're united in the goal because something happened to them that made them just this infuriated with the situation.
yes.
Or else they wouldn't be fighting.
But, in Lord of the Rings, like to bring it back to that, where all the different races have to deal with the power of the ring and Mordor and Isengard's assault in different ways in different fronts,
True.
Like, it's all different characters having different reactions to this one event.
There's all set into motion by one person, but
Yes.
then became way more than that because the nature of things and power grabs and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of the thing I like to compare the inciting incident for the plot and for the protagonist, but for the plot as dropping a stone into an otherwise still pond.
Yes.
And just watch the ripples go, and they have countless number of effects, and you start losing track because there's just so much going on, and they keep going out.
Well, it's just like how, like, like in terms of like the ripple sort of thing, bring it that analogy thing, like you have one big stone and you have one big ripple, but if you have a bunch of smaller stones, you have continual ripples. So
And you're dropping them in different places, too.
yeah, exactly. So
But the ripples tend to cross each other and
Yeah,
not even
exactly.
cancel each
So-
other out. They just keep trying to go.
but there's one guy throwing the rock.
But there's one guy who's dropping all of these stones all throughout the... That darn guy! What the heck?
What's wrong with you, man? It's a nice pond. Anyways, so regardless of, again, the final time we get to use this for the set, regardless of which week in our set that comes, can you twits make an argument for starting with this one first?
Simply put, this is the reason the plot happens at all. Of course you can start with this one. The conflict without which no story exists is what we're talking about. Especially if there's a sizable gap of time between the incident and the main action, knowing what starts the ripple effect is crucial to planning your story. Or at least I think so.
See, that's the thing. Like, I actually say you can't start with this one first, because then you have no characters, no plot, no setting, and no genre to work with. How can you have Inciting Incident without any of those?
Easy. It's not it's from this character who will oppose the others.
I mean, like I said, it could be that the incident is malleable enough that it can work with a varied number of those things. So whatever you choose later, it still works. Even then, I'd say start with the others first. But again, that's just how I'd write. So,
I mean, of course you can start with this one. As I said, I generally come up with this when thinking of other things. But if you have that flashbang bulb on in your head and it's like, this guy destroys a planet, and eventually he'll be on a collision course with the characters I'm about to make. And then you start planning the characters.
well, see, I think that's the thing with like the inciting incident that you're talking about with the plot tends also to be the hook, which is what we talked about in the one beforehand too. So, while with this one with the main character is more different.
Well, because the scale is different. We talked about stake raisers in the set about Serial Works, I think.
Something like that.
Or was it Episodic Works?
Ding.
Ding. But point being that you need to try and keep raising the stakes. Well, there are two ways to do that. You can do them on a more personal scale, and then you can do them on a more global scale.
Right.
So eventually, if you've gotten to the multiverse, you
Right.
don't really have more to expand there. It's by adding more people, and the stakes that they bring is the only way you can continue to expand in that respect.
That's true.
So with this inciting incident can be this nebulous event that happens. You just need to know that it happened and like, okay, it's going to be this without really knowing what else you want to do in the story, and that still works.
Mm-hmm. Right. That
But
makes
for the reason that the protagonist is leaving, his starting point for leaving home, that stuff you probably can't do without the main character planned.
That's true. That's the thing. That's more what I was thinking of. So
See, I think the consistent like disconnect here is that we're approaching different starting points as inciting incidents. There could be multiple. One for the protagonist, one for the actual story itself, and I'm always talking about it from the story angle.
right.
You're talking about it for the character, which of course you need the character.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And yeah, I get that. But yeah, I guess it's true that what the inciting incident itself is malleable. So
Right. Anyway, I think we've managed to twit ourselves out about this topic.
Yes.
But before we go, because this is the last episode of our set, we get the reading the fan mail.
And this is the one you've been threatening us with for a while.
We've been inundated with new contacts this go-around, with a whole lot of things coming in both for Paleobites and about Megazoic, so thank you for getting in touch with us.
Yes.
As to stuff for the Ritwit, we selected some fun ones. As a note to our younger listeners, you might want to skip ahead to the closing part
Oh
of the episode. For
boy.
this one.
Well, this is my damn fault for writing these skits that they keep responding to. To be fair, one of them wasn't my idea. It was a friend of the show's idea. You know who you are if you're listening.
Thanks for listening. But curse you for sending all this practically hate mail on us. Anyway, Pamela R. in California writes in to say, you guys must be hemming it up for the massage chair advertisement you made. It's too good to be true.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Pamela.
Sure, Pamela, too good to be true may be how you describe it, but did you hear those noises we made? God, it was better than lots of things we could otherwise be doing.
I've been showing that skit to some people. The part that makes people laugh so much is when you get in the chair and you're like, oh yeah.
It's all about delivery. Listener Rob N. in Texas had this to say. I didn't realize you were trying to sell sex on your show. That massage chair ad and a couple others are a bit too far. I'm thinking I won't listen anymore, and I would consider telling other people to blacklist you also.
Of course, this is some guy from Texas, some Puritan. Like, Like,
Puritan's not what I think of. Anyway, moving on.
just some guy who's like, I just left nun school. And I think this is too
Okay, monk school if it's a guy, but anyway.
He was raised in a Catholic nunnery.
Parochial school. Anyway, Rob, please don't leave us. We do what we must to earn some funding for our projects. But I do want to say that sex sells is certainly a thing, but we will strive not to sell it because of our personalities.
You heard me the last couple episodes. I am ace.
Well,
sort of. I don't know. I might not be. I'm
the
open.
other thing is that we're probably not, good looking enough to sell that. So,
I'd like to think
stick around.
I'd like to think I'm a 6.
Stick around. We have good content beyond the ads. Those are fun things for us to do. Hopefully we earn some support financially because we'd love to do this and it gives us a little extra money every so often. But we do this because we enjoy writing.
Yes.
Which is not what the point of those ads is.
No. So I like to think I'm a 6. You're probably a 6.5. I think.
Oh, how kind of you. Obviously, the ads are hit or miss. So even if you just skip them entirely,
don't skip I put a lot of work into those ads.
You're admitting that you're putting work into the ads rather than they're being given to us? Some of them?
I guess that's true. You're right. Never mind. We're giving those guys. I don't write them. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Sometimes they'll hit or miss with you, individual listeners. So, I mean, if you think that ad's not for you, then just go ahead and skip to the content. I mean, you can still listen. Even if you're getting into that point in the episode already, it counts as a download. So we don't know if you like it or don't if you don't get in touch with us.
Why are we reading this out? This is silly.
We appreciate your downloads from wherever you're listening to your podcast.
All right.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, who's next?
Amy K., who claims being from Michigan, wrote the following. How precious that Donald couldn't tell a phone sex line when he hears one. It's almost endearingly innocent.
Aw, thanks.
But for future reference, those 900 numbers are generally bad news for guys who didn't intend to go past the PG-13 equivalent rating with a phone call.
That's almost like it was the joke.
Amy, your advice is duly noted, and we certainly appreciate the email.
Amy K. I know an Amy K. Amy Kazoyan.
I don't think they're from Michigan, though.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
Actually, there's 2 Amy Kazoyans. There is Amy Kazoyan, his sister,
and
his wife.
Oh God, it's like your sister marrying a Matt. Oh wait, she did.
Which is why my sister, whose name is Alex, I'm never going to marry an Alex or date an Alex, because what if it works?
Then it'd be even Stevens, right?
It'll just be like
it'd be weird.
My parents would be like, here's my daughter Alex and her husband Matt.
Daughter-in-law Alex.
And then here's my son Matt and his wife Alex. What kind of weird incestuous undertones are? Rob, if you don't like that,
you could see they're certainly different people. Rob, by the way, let us know.
Yeah, is that too far? Well then, nah, you're fine. All right, who's next?
Actually, the one that comes to mind is that either my brother or I was supposed to be Stephanie if we were female, and I ended up dating a Stephanie. Anyway,
my first kiss was with a girl named Stephanie. She
would
turn out to be crazy.
Well, and anyway. Last one here from Claude J. in France.
Claude.
First off, how cool is it we have fan mail from France?
Well, Claude's such a French name. If only his name was Pierre.
Amazing. We're practically big time now if we're getting fan mail from other countries even.
We've got downloads from all 6 continents that aren't Antarctica.
Short Antarctica, yeah. Anyways.
A scientist, go to Antarctica and then go to the Wi-Fi and download it there. Maybe they have. I don't think it tracks it in Antarctica. Maybe we have gotten downloads in Antarctica.
Maybe we're all over the world. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, anyways, Claude writes, and I apologize for any accidental accent as I read this. The humor is amusing, and the content appeals to me as a hobby writer, but please slow down your delivery so I can keep up with the English. It's not my first language, and you don't offer any other languages, so that's my humble request. Hoping to continue listening to you from France. Sincerely, Claude.
Look.
I'm blown away by his thoughtfulness.
Bonjour, messieurs of the Fleetwood. We have a French listener here to listen to us today. You should join my restaurant to get you some story cooking. He just gave me the finger, listeners.
Flipping you both birds at full force. No. I'm blown away by Claude's thoughtfulness, not Gaston's sudden appearance. And apologize for getting ahead of ourselves on pace. It's something
I do tend to talk fast, but I also think faster. So
thinks even faster than he talks, which is why he stumbles so much. It's something we both could work on, but so long as you have a way to understand, we are so glad you're listening.
Yes, we are.
We'll aim to do better with that, so please keep downloading, Claude, and best of luck with all of your writting adventures.
And try to take up some of the story cooking.
And Gaston will have to sell his product because you're a countryman. That's how it goes.
The fellow French was Vive la Revolution.
Viva? Isn't that more...
Live for the revolution.
Yeah, but that's not... Viva isn't French. It'd be Vivre la Revolution.
Yeah, well, that's what I said.
You said Viva.
I didn't say it. Gaston said. Take it up to Gaston.
I'll take it up with Gaston off the air. Anyway, thank you so much for paying attention to us two twit ourselves out about rating all of the contacts.
Yes,
We appreciate
that's it
that.
for this week.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, we'll get to that in just a second. So,
yes, huge thank you to our patrons so far, including Alexis R.
Their support means a lot.
Yes, contact us at mattd@methodoncareer.com for general questions to either co-host.
If you want to specify David or Donald, it'd be great. If you're having trouble spelling the email address, look in the description. Also there, you can check out our Patreon information.
Patreon.com/MatthewDonald. Follow me at Matthew Donald Career on Facebook, at MatthewDon64 on Twitter, and MatthewDon64 on Instagram. Why 64? Because that's the number of emails we get every week that we have to discard. And these are the ones that we got to this time. Imagine the ones we didn't read.
Yeah, sometimes he doesn't even show them to me. That's how bad they must be.
Just like, burn it.
Burn it in fiery blaze.
What I do is I take the email, I delete it. But first, not only do I delete it, I print it out, and then I delete it from the email. Then put the print in the trash can, then burn the trash can, then take a cross and be like, out of this house. Out of this house.
Just try and exercise the demon here. Jeez, you got to buy new trash cans like every week. God. At least tell me that you do them like all at once, so you're only creating one trash can bonfire.
If I got all our emails all at once, I would, but I don't. So
dang it, you're right. You're right. You should just like take it on yourself to do it on a Saturday. You'll like look through the emails then and be like, okay,
that's the Sabbath according to Jewish.
According to Jewish tradition, but you're not Jewish.
That's right, I'm not. Okay.
We are equal opportunity offenders. If you still choose to listen, thank you so much.
Rob, are you listening? Hello.
Anyway,
all right. Well,
that should be it from us.
I'm Matt Donald.
I'm Matt David. We'll be back next week with a new set.
Whatever that may be.
We don't know what it is yet, so stay tuned to find out. But hopefully, in the meantime, you will keep writing the good right.
Keep writing the good writ.
Stay safe. Wash your hands. Love your family members while you can and all that fun stuff.
Get a vaccine.
We'll see you next time. Until then, keep writing. Bye.
The Read
That last action must have broken the narrator or something.